Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship watching the stars when the message arrived from space. The signal came from Zenith Prime, which was the center of the Galactic Council, where all alien species made big decisions about who could live and who had to die. Jake felt his stomach drop when he saw the urgent red warning flash across his screen, because messages like this never brought good news for Earth transmission, showed Ambassador Lisa Chen, who worked as Earth's voice in the Council, and she looked tired and scared in a way Jake had never seen before. Lisa had always been strong and calm even when dealing with the strangest alien creatures, but now her hands shook as she spoke into the camera. She told Jake that 3 council members had just voted to destroy Earth completely and kill every human being. Alava Commander Vexstar led the Hegemony Empire and thought humans were too dangerous to live because they fought too much and could not be controlled like other species. High Counselor Tice came from the collective mind where everyone thought the same thoughts, and he believed human independence would ruin the peace they had built across the galaxy. Trade Minister Gorlick ran the Commerce Guild and feared that humans were making new technology too fast, which would hurt the business deals. His friends had spent centuries building. Lisa explained that these 3 powerful aliens had presented their case to the full council using evidence of human wars and violence from Earth's history. They showed pictures of nuclear bombs and battlefields and cities destroyed by fighting, and argued that humans would bring this same destruction to peaceful alien worlds. They said Earth's military was growing too strong and that human colonies were spreading too quickly through space without asking permission. First vote had been close, but not close enough to save Earth because many council members were afraid to oppose the 3 leaders. Some aliens abstained, which meant they refused to choose either way, and 4 members had voted against the Earth Elimination Protocol, but 27 had voted in favor of destroying humanity completely. The final vote was scheduled for exactly 30 Earth days, which gave humans 1 month to prove they deserved to live. Jake listened as Lisa described the council session where she had begged and pleaded for Earth's survival, but the 3 leaders had already made up their minds. Vexstar stood 8 feet tall with purple skin and sharp claws, and when he spoke his voice sounded like grinding metal. He told the council that humans reminded him of the Cathani, who had once threatened galactic peace until the hegemony stopped them forever. Tice looked like a floating jellyfish with glowing tentacles and spoke in a voice that echoed strangely because his people shared one giant mind. He said individual thinking was a disease that would spread and destroy the unity that kept the galaxy safe. Gorlick appeared as a short round creature covered in golden scales and expensive jewelry, and he showed charts proving that human trade was hurting profits. For established alien business session, the transmission ended. Jake immediately contacted Earth Command, and President Kate Williams called an emergency meeting with every important leader on the planet. Admiral Ben Parker, who commanded all of Earth's space forces, wanted to prepare for war and start building bigger weapons right away. He argued that 30 days was enough time to position Earth's fleet around the solar system and make the aliens pay a heavy price for attacking humanity. Alex Turner, who studied alien life forms, disagreed with the military approach and suggested that Earth should try to find friends among the other council members. He believed that not all aliens hated humans and that diplomacy might work better than weapons. Turner had spent years learning about different species and thought Earth could prove they were peaceful by helping other worlds with their problems. President Williams listened to both men and realized that Earth faced the biggest crisis in human history. She ordered Admiral Parker to quietly prepare defenses while Drive Turner began reaching out to alien contacts who might help Earth survive. The president also commanded Jake to take his ship to the outer colonies and warn all human settlements about the coming threat. As Jake's ship left Earth orbit, he looked back at the blue and white planet where humanity had been born and wondered if he would ever see it again. The stars that had once seemed beautiful and full of promise now felt cold and hostile, because somewhere among them lived creatures who wanted to see every human die. Jake knew that the next 30 days would determine whether humanity had a future in the galaxy, or whether Earth would become nothing but dust and empty space. The captain opened a communication channel to all human colonies and military outposts scattered across dozens of star systems and began transmitting the terrible news that Earth's children living among the stars needed to know. Some colonists wanted to return home to defend Earth, while others argued that spreading out would help humanity survive even if the home world died. Jake realized that the galaxy was about to learn what humans could do when their backs were against the wall and their survival was threatened. Ambassador Lisa Chen worked day and night to find allies among the alien species who had not voted to destroy Earth, and she discovered that the galaxy was more complicated than humans had realized, for council members had refused to vote either. Wei and Lisa hoped these neutral aliens might help save humanity if she could convince them that Earth deserved to live. Captain Jake Morrison received orders to visit the fringe worlds, where species that had been pushed out of their home systems by the powerful council members had built new colonies. His ship traveled for days through empty space until he reached the refugee coalition, which was led by Commander Zareth, whose people had lost their original planet when Vexstar's hegemony decided their territory had valuable minerals. Shard H looked like a tall insect with silver skin and for arms, but she spoke with kindness and wisdom that reminded Jake of his grandmother back on Earth. She explained that the hegemony had destroyed 6 different species over the past 1,000 years by claiming they were threats to galactic peace, when really Vexstar just wanted their planets and resources. The refugees had tried to fight back, but their individual fleets were too small to defeat the massive hegemony. War Machineth coalition included species like the Veltari, who were forced from their ocean world when the Commerce Guild decided their fishing grounds would make better mining sites. The tree-like Nordic had been driven from their forest planet because Gorlax Corporation wanted to harvest their sacred groves for rare wood. Commander Zareth showed Jake secret records that proved these displacements followed the same pattern the Council was now using against Earth. Meanwhile, Dr. Alex Turner made an incredible discovery. While studying genetic samples from different alien species in his laboratory on Earth, he found that human DNA contained markers that matched several ancient races that had mysteriously disappeared from galactic records. Long before Earth joined the Council, these extinct species had names like the First Builders and the Star Wanderers, but all official information about them had been erased from Council data. Bostoner realized that humans might be related to these vanished peoples, which would explain why Earth's technology advanced so quickly and why human thinking was so different from current alien species. The genetic evidence suggested that somewhere in the distant past, human ancestors had traveled the galaxy and built civilizations that were later destroyed by forces that still controlled galactic politics. Ambassador Chen continued her investigation into Council corruption and discovered that Trade Minister Gorlick had been secretly meeting with mining corporations and weapons manufacturers to divide up Earth's resources before the planet was destroyed. She found communication records showing that Gorlick had already sold drilling rights to Earth's core metals and had promised human technology to his business partners as payment for supporting the elimination. Voteth evidence was damaging, but Chen needed proof that would hold up in a council court, and getting that proof meant breaking into secure databases guarded by some of the most advanced security systems in the galaxy. She contacted Captain Jake and asked him to help steal the files while she created distractions. During council sessions, Jake worked with Commander Zareth to plan a mission that would infiltrate Gorlak's private offices on Zenith Prime during a major trade conference when security would be focused elsewhere. The Refugee Coalition provided Jake with alien technology that could disguise his ship's energy signature and make it appear to be a harmless cargo vessel. Turner traveled to meet with the Coalition scientists and shared his genetic discoveries, which excited the refugee researchers because they had always suspected their own peoples were connected to the vanished ancient races. Together they began building a database of genetic information that painted a picture of the galaxy's hidden history. Investigation revealed that the current council structure had been built on top of the ruins of a more democratic federation that included dozens of species who valued individual freedom and cultural diversity. The 3 council members pushing for Earth's destruction were descendants of the military forces that had destroyed this ancient federation and erased its history from official records. Ambassador Chen presented some of this information carefully to the neutral council members and saw their attitudes begin to change as they realized they had been lied to about galactic history. The revelation that their own peaceful council was built on genocide and oppression made several aliens question whether they could continue supporting the current system. However, Vexstar and his allies learned about Earth's investigation and began moving faster to eliminate the threat before more secrets could be revealed. They accused Chen of spreading terrorist propaganda and demanded an immediate vote on Earth's fate, rather than waiting for the full 30-day periodic return from his successful mission, with stolen files proving Gorlak's corruption. But now, Earth had less than 2 weeks to save itself, and the evidence needed to be presented carefully. To avoid giving the three leaders an excuse to attack immediately, the captain realized that humanity was not just fighting for survival, but had stumbled into a galactic civil war between freedom and oppression that had been hidden for thousands of years. Earth decided to fight back in a way that surprised everyone, including the aliens, who thought they understood human nature because instead of building bigger weapons and preparing for war, humanity chose to help others. Captain Jake Morrison led Operation Goodwill, which sent human doctors and engineers and teachers to dozens of struggling worlds that the Galactic Council had forgotten or ignored while spending time on politics and trade deals. Sarah Mitchell took her engineering team to the desert planet Cathara, where millions of aliens were dying because their water sources had dried up centuries ago and no one in the council cared enough to help them. Sarah's team brought Earth technology that could pull moisture from the air and dig deeper wells, and within 2 weeks, the dying world had flowing rivers again. The grateful Catharan people sent messages to the council praising humanity and demanding that Earth be saved, which created the first crack in the solid wall of support that Vexstar had built around his elimination plan. Other worlds began asking why humans were helping them when the council members, who were supposed to protect them, had never offered assistance. Admiral Ben Parker secretly positioned Earth's defense fleet throughout the solar system while publicly supporting the peaceful missions because he knew that diplomacy might fail and humanity needed to be ready to fight. His ships hid behind asteroids and space stations where alien scouts could not easily spot them. But Parker's real strength came from an unexpected source of volunteers from dozens of alien species began joining Earth's military forces after seeing how humans had helped their worlds survive famines and plagues and natural disasters. Captain Lisa Stone commanded the battleship Unity, which now had a crew that included refugees from the fringe worlds and grateful aliens whose planets had been saved by human aid workers. Thalian volunteers brought advanced technology and knowledge of hegemony tactics that made Earth's fleet much stronger than it appeared on paper, because the Council had never faced an enemy that combined human determination with alien expertise. These mixed crews worked together better than anyone expected, because they shared a common cause of fighting against oppression. Ambassador Lisa Chen continued presenting Earth's defense to the Council, but she faced constant interruptions from Vexstar's supporters, who accused humans of trying to buy their way out of justice with propaganda missions. The hegemony commander argued that helping other worlds was just another human trick to gain political influence, and that Earth was still too dangerous to be allowed to serve. Aveha Counselor Tice from the collective mind claimed that human individualism was spreading like a virus to species that had been peaceful and unified for thousands of years. He showed the Council evidence that worlds touched by human influence were developing new ideas about personal freedom and cultural diversity that threatened the stability of the galactic order. Trade Minister Gorlak became increasingly angry as reports came in showing human technology and medical knowledge being shared freely with worlds that had been ignored by his corporate partners. The Commerce Guild leader accused Earth of unfair trade practices and economic terrorism because humans were giving away valuable resources instead of selling them for profit. President Kate Williams received intelligence reports that Commander Vexstar was moving hegemony battle fleets toward Earth's sector under the excuse of conducting peacekeeping exercises. The alien ships were still weeks away from Earth, but their movement violated several Council treaties and showed that Vexstar did not intend to wait for legal authorization before attacking humanity. Dralix Turner analyzed the alien fleet movements and realized that Earth was facing enemies who had been planning this attack for months. While pretending to follow Council procedures, the genetic evidence he had discovered suggested that this was not the first time. These forces had eliminated species that threatened their control over the galaxy. Jake Morrison received emergency orders to evacuate human colonies that were close to hegemony space because Admiral Parker believed Vexstar would attack the weakest targets. First to test Earth's response, the captain's ship rescued thousands of human families from mining stations and research outposts, while fighting off hegemony scout ships that were already hunting for easy targets. The rescue missions showed the galaxy that humans would risk their lives to save each other, which impressed many alien species whose own governments had abandoned colonies when they became inconvenient or expensive to maintain. Messages of support for Earth began flooding into the Council from worlds whose populations had grown tired of being treated as expendable resource. Commander Zareth contacted Jake with intelligence showing that Vexstar planned to destroy several human colonies and blamed the attacks on pirates or terrorists to create an excuse for immediate military action against Earth. The refugee coalition was preparing their own fleets to help defend human settlements, but they needed coordination with Earth's forces to be effective. Ambassador Chen realized that Earth was no longer just fighting for the right to exist, but had become the center of a growing rebellion against the current council system. Dozens of species were questioning why they had accepted oppression for so long, and were beginning to demand changes that would give smaller worlds a voice in galactic government. The 30-day deadline was approaching fast, but the political situation had changed completely because Earth's actions had inspired a movement that was spreading across the galaxy faster than anyone could control. Jake knew that win or lose, humanity had already changed the course of galactic history. Drive Alex Turner made the discovery that changed everything when his research team found hidden genetic patterns in the DNA of extinct alien species that pointed to a massive cover-up spanning thousands of years. The evidence showed that these vanished peoples had all been destroyed in something called the Predecessor War. But all official records of this conflict had been erased from Council databases by the same families that now controlled galactic politics. Captain Jake Morrison followed Turner's research coordinates to the Forbidden Sector, where Council law prohibited any ship from traveling because the area was supposedly empty space, filled with dangerous radiation. His ship encountered no radiation, but found something much more shocking when they discovered the ruins of an ancient human outpost floating in the darkness. Between Dead Star's ancient station was clearly built by humans, but used technology that was thousands of years more advanced than anything Earth had ever developed, which meant that humanity had reached the stars long before joining the current galactic community. Jake explored the empty corridors with his crew and found computer systems that still contained fragments of historical data about Earth's first attempt at building an interstellar civilization. Station records showed that ancient humans had been part of a democratic federation that included dozens of species who valued individual freedom and cultural diversity above the rigid control systems that the current council used to maintain order. This old federation had promoted trade based on mutual benefit rather than exploitation, and had helped weaker species develop their own technology instead of keeping them dependent. Commander Rick Hayes led a team of engineers who worked to restore power to the ancient computers and discovered that the Predecessor War had not been started by the peaceful Federation, but by military forces that closely resembled the current hegemony empire and collective mind. The attacking forces had used propaganda about dangerous individualism and economic chaos to justify their campaign of genocide against free-thinking species. The ruins contained evidence that Earth's original allies had tried to warn humanity about the coming attack, but human colonies were too scattered and too peaceful to mount an effective defense when the war began. Most human worlds had been destroyed before Earth's government realized they were facing extinction. Rather than a political disagreement, Turner analyzed genetic samples from the ancient station and confirmed that modern humans were direct descendants of the survivors who had fled back to Earth when their interstellar civilization collapsed. The genetic markers he had found in supposedly extinct alien species proved that many other Federation members had also survived by hiding on remote worlds and pretending to be primitive species that posed no threat. Ambassador Lisa Chen received this information while preparing for Earth's final defense presentation to the Council and realized that humanity had legitimate legal claims to their territory that went back thousands of years before the current Council structure was established. The evidence also proved that the 3 Council members demanding Earth's destruction were descendants of the original aggressors in the predecessor war. The ancient records showed that Vexstar's hegemony had been founded by military commanders who had led the attack against the peaceful Federation, and that their empire had grown rich by looting the resources of destroyed worlds. High Counselor Tice represented the descendants of a species that had gained power by absorbing the minds of conquered peoples and forcing them to join their collective consciousness. Trade Minister Gorlak's Commerce Guild traced its origins to war profiteers who had supplied weapons to both sides during the predecessor war, while secretly working to ensure that the conflict would destroy competition for their business interests. The Guild had spent centuries maintaining control over galactic trade by eliminating species that developed independent economic systems and shared this explosive information carefully with the neutral Council members who had been wavering in their support for Earth and watched their attitudes change dramatically as they realized they had been manipulated by the descendants of ancient war criminals. Several alien ambassadors privately contacted Chen to apologize for not supporting humanity sooner and to offer secret assistance. However, Vexstar learned about the ancient discoveries through his spy network and decided that Earth had become too dangerous to allow any more time for political maneuvering. The hegemony commander accused Chen of fabricating terrorist propaganda and called for an emergency council session that would vote on Earth's fate within 72 hours. The shortened timeline meant that Earth could not present all their evidence properly or give the neutral Council members time to verify the historical claims, which was exactly what Vexstar intended because he knew that prolonged investigation would expose crimes that his family had spent millennia trying to hijack. Morrison rushed back toward Earth with the ancient technology his team had recovered, while Dr. Turner worked frantically to unlock the secrets of devices that might give humanity a fighting chance against overwhelming odds. The captain realized that Earth was not just fighting for survival, but had uncovered a conspiracy that had shaped galactic politics for thousands of years. The discovery that the current Council system was built on the bones of a murdered civilization gave humanity a moral authority they had never possessed before, but it also made them a target that had to be eliminated before the truth could spread to every world in the galaxy and inspire a revolution that would topple the existing order. Earth had only 72 hours left before the emergency council vote that would seal humanity's fate, and Captain Jake Morrison knew that desperate times called for desperate measures, which was why he volunteered to lead the most dangerous mission in human history. His team would infiltrate Zenith Prime during the final council session, not to attack the alien leaders, but to broadcast the truth about the predecessor war directly to every inhabited world in the galaxy. Alex Turner stayed on Earth working around the clock to activate the ancient communication technology they had recovered from the Forbidden Sector, because the devices contained a network that had once connected all the peaceful species of the old Federation. Turner believed that if he could restore even part of this system, it would allow Earth to bypass the Council's control over information and speak directly to billions of alien citizens who had never heard the real history of their galaxy's ancient network had been designed to prevent exactly the kind of authoritarian control that the current Council used to maintain power, because it allowed every species to communicate freely without government censorship or corporate interference. Turner's team discovered that pieces of the old network still existed hidden inside communication systems that the Council thought they completely controlled. Ambassador Lisa Chen prepared for what would likely be her final appearance before the Council by gathering every piece of evidence about historical genocide and current corruption that Earth had uncovered during their investigation. She knew that Vexstar would not give her much time to speak before calling for the vote, but she planned to make every second count by accusing the 3 Council leaders of crimes that would shock the Galaxy. Admiral Ben Parker positioned Earth's defense fleet at the edge of the solar system, where they faced Vextar's massive armada that had arrived under the pretense of maintaining order during the council proceedings. The hegemony commander had brought enough firepower to destroy Earth 10 times over. But Parker knew that the real battle would not be won with weapons, but with the truth. That Turner was preparing to broadcast. Jake's infiltration team included volunteers from the Refugee Coalition who knew the layout of Zenith Prime and could help human operatives move through alien territory without being detected. Commander Zareth had provided technology that would disguise the humans as members of various species and allow them to access restricted areas of the Council. Complex mission required split-second timing because Turner had to activate the ancient network at the exact moment that Chen began her final speech to the Council, so that her words would be transmitted instantly to every world in the galaxy. Before Vextar could shut down the broadcast, if the timing was wrong, Earth would lose their only chance to tell the truth. Before being destroyed, Turner succeeded in bringing the ancient communication system online, just as the emergency council session began, and suddenly billions of alien citizens could hear what was happening in the chamber, where their leaders were deciding the fate of humanity. Most of these beings had never been allowed to witness council proceedings because their governments claimed the discussions were too complex for ordinary people to understand. Chen stood before the assembled council members, and instead of begging for Earth's survival, she formally accused Vextar and Tice and Gorlick of being descendants of war criminals who had built their power on genocide and oppression. She presented genetic evidence and ancient records and modern corruption files that proved the three leaders were continuing crimes that had begun thousands of years ago. During the predecessor war, the accusations caused chaos in the council chamber, as several alien ambassadors walked out in protest while others demanded immediate investigations into the historical claims. Vextar tried to silence Chen by ordering hegemony security forces to arrest her for terrorism, but Jake's team had sabotaged the chamber's internal systems, and the doors would not open. Turner's broadcast reached every inhabited world simultaneously, and for the first time in millennia, the citizens of the galaxy learned that their peaceful council had been built on the bones of murdered civilizations. The revelation triggered immediate protests and riots and demands for justice, as billions of beings realized they had been living under the rule of the descendants of ancient war criminal species that had been told they were primitive and needed council protection. Discovered that their ancestors had been advanced civilizations that were destroyed for refusing to submit to authoritarian control. Worlds that had accepted exploitation and oppression for centuries suddenly understood that they had legitimate rights to freedom and self-determination. Broadcast showed alien populations the evidence of ongoing corruption as Trade Minister Gorlak's secret deals to divide Earth's resources were revealed, along with proof that the Commerce Guild had been manipulating galactic economics for their own benefit while keeping other species in poverty and dependence. Vextar's armada found itself surrounded by ships from dozens of species whose populations had risen up against their governments and demanded an end to council tyranny. The hegemony commander discovered that many of his own officers were refusing orders because they had learned that their empire was founded on lies, and genocide. Of 72-hour deadline became meaningless as the council structure collapsed under the weight of revealed truth and popular revolution. Earth had not just saved itself, but had sparked the liberation of an entire galaxy that had been waiting centuries for someone brave enough to stand up and fight for freedom. The galaxy changed forever in the months following the broadcast that revealed the truth about the predecessor war and the crimes of the council leaders who had ruled through fear and deception for thousands of years. Commander Vextar and High Counselor Tice and Trade Minister Gorlick faced war crimes tribunals as species after species came forward with evidence of historical atrocities and modern oppression that could no longer be hidden from the galactic community. Earth not only survived the threat of extinction, but became the center of a new democratic federation that included representation for every species, regardless of their military power or economic influence. Captain Jake Morrison was elected as the first human High Admiral of the reformed Defense Fleet because his courage during the infiltration mission had inspired beings across the galaxy To stand up for their rights, Ambassador Lisa Chen became Secretary General of the newly formed Galactic Federation and worked tirelessly to create a government structure that would prevent any group from gaining the kind of absolute power that had corrupted the old council system. Her experience fighting authoritarian control made her an ideal leader for building institutions that protected individual freedom while maintaining galactic cooperation. Alex Turner led the restoration of the ancient communication network that connected isolated worlds and facilitated the return of several species that had been thought extinct but had actually been hiding on remote planets to escape persecution. His work proved that diversity and cultural independence were strengths that made civilizations more resilient rather than threats that needed to be eliminated. The new Federation faced enormous challenges as worlds that had been oppressed for centuries struggled to rebuild their societies and establish democratic governments. But the spirit of cooperation that Earth had demonstrated during the crisis provided a model that other species could follow. Human diplomats and engineers and teachers traveled throughout the galaxy sharing knowledge and helping former council territories transition to freedom. President Kate Williams addressed the reformed Galactic Assembly and delivered a message that became the founding principle of the new Federation when she declared that no species should ever again face extinction for the crime of being different. Her words were translated into thousands of languages and became a rallying cry for beings who had spent their lives accepting oppression as the natural order. The trials of the former council leaders revealed the full extent of the crimes that had been committed during the predecessor war and the subsequent centuries of authoritarian rule. Evidence showed that dozens of peaceful species had been completely destroyed, while others had been reduced to slavery or forced into primitive conditions. To eliminate any threat to the established order, Admiral Ben Parker reorganized the Galactic Defense Forces to prevent any single species from dominating the military structure, and established training programs that taught officers from different worlds to work together as equals. The mixed crews that had volunteered to help Earth defend itself became the foundation of a new kind of military that served all species, rather than just the powerful ones. The economic reforms led by the Federation dismantled the monopolistic system that had kept most worlds in poverty while enriching the Commerce Guild and its corporate partners. Free trade agreements replaced the exploitative contracts that had drained resources from developing worlds, and new technologies were shared openly, instead of being hoarded by wealthy species. Commander Zareth and the Refugee Coalition returned to their original home worlds and began the long process of rebuilding civilizations that had been scattered by hegemony aggression. The Federation provided support and resources for these reconstruction efforts as part of a broader program to repair the damage caused by thousands of years of systematic oppression. However, the galaxy's transformation was not complete because long-range sensors began detecting signals from beyond the galactic rim that suggested the predecessors had not been completely destroyed during the ancient war. The mysterious transmissions used technology that was even more advanced than the devices Earth had found in the Forbidden Sector. Turner analyzed the strange signals and realized they contained mathematical patterns that could only have been created by the original builders of the Democratic Federation that had been destroyed so long ago. The discovery meant that somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, the survivors of the predecessor war had been waiting for the right moment to return home. Jake Morrison prepared new exploration missions to investigate the signals and make contact with the beings who had built the civilization that Earth was now trying to restore. His ships would carry the message that freedom had finally returned to the galaxy, and that the descendants of the ancient Federation were ready to welcome their predecessors back. The story concluded with humanity celebrating not just their survival, but their role in liberating billions of beings from a system of government that had been built on lies and maintained through violence. Earth's ships launched toward the edge of known space, carrying explorers and diplomats rather than conquerors, because they had learned that the universe was vast enough for every species to find their place. President Williams delivered her final speech as Earth's leader before joining the Galactic Federation government and promised that humanity would never forget the lesson they had learned during their darkest hour. She reminded the galaxy that freedom was not something that could be granted by those in power, but was a right that belonged to every thinking being in the universe. The new Federation established monitoring stations throughout the galaxy to watch for signals from the returning predecessors, while continuing the work of building a democratic society that would be strong enough to defend itself, but wise enough never to become the oppressor that it had fought so hard to defeat.